guys, this is Rabbitearsblog and welcome to my Fandom Saga compilation video. So before I get into more details about this, here are a few words from the channel. Alright everybody, it's time to get on the social media train. Want to chat with me in 100 words or less? Then check out my Twitter account. Want to talk about movies, TV shows, and video games within the group? Then check out my Facebook account. Want to check out some of my ultra cool fan art? Then check out my DeviantArt page. Want to get the lowdown on everything that's happening on this channel? Then check all of the above. And now, we return to our regularly scheduled program. So this isn't actually the first compilation video I made. I actually made a compilation video about all the Rugrats TV shows I had reviewed up to that point, so you could check that video out. But anyway, this is a compilation video of all of the videos I have made regarding the fandom and their reactions to certain situations. So sit back and enjoy the Fandom Saga compilation video. Hey everybody, this is Rabbitearsblog and welcome to another general discussion series. And also, Animated Me will be taking over for today. And today's video is going to be on should the fans have a say in how a movie or a TV series should go? And before I get into this, here are a few words from the channel. So many years ago, if you were to ask me if there would ever be a Snyder Cut version of the Justice League movie, I would have told you no. There's no way that's happening because Warner Bros. Is not going to waste their time in trying to make a movie for the fans when they already got a plan that they have for their own cinematic universe going on without the Snyderverse. But after Warner Bros. Made the Snyder Cut for the Justice League movie, I was like, maybe there's a possibility that fans may have a say in how the movies and TV shows might go in the near future. And I just wanted to talk about some of the pros and cons that can happen when the fans get involved with the movies and TV shows. So here we go. Let's start with the pros first. So the first pro is that the movies and the TV series will be more faithful to their source material. One of my biggest pet peeves regarding movies and TV shows is that there are some movies and TV shows that stray too far from the source material. And I'm thinking to the point where it's like an in-name only adaptation, meaning that the only thing that the movies and the TV shows have in common with their source material is the title. And I find myself questioning about why would you take a source material and then make a movie that has nothing to do with said source material? That doesn't make any sense to me. So if you have fans who get involved with the movies and TV shows and they're like trying to tell the directors and the writers, hey, this is not how the source material went. Like none of these characters have anything to do with the source material. Why are you making the movie so far from the source material when you have the opportunity to make it like the source material? And I think with fans getting involved in that way, they can help the big studios try to make more faithful adaptations of the source materials that they're adapting instead of trying to stray too far from said source material for no reason at all. Another positive thing about the fans getting involved with the movies and TV shows is that sometimes they might make the right call about what to do about said movie or TV show. Like the biggest example would be the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. If the fans didn't step in like they did and told Paramount, hey, this is not how Sonic the Hedgehog looks, you need to change his design to make it more faithful to his video game counterpart, I don't think the Sonic movie would have been as successful as it is if they had just kept the original design and just ignored the fans when they were trying to tell them, hey, you need to change the design or things are going to go bad. Like sometimes there's a reason why this particular franchise or particular source material is very popular with the fans. And if you're trying to change so much with the source material or you're trying to have the characters designed in a way where they don't look nothing like the source material, then I could see the movie bombing. Like I don't think the Sonic the Hedgehog movie would have done so well with the original design of Sonic. And not just because the original design of Sonic looked ugly as sin, but also because I felt like the original design of Sonic wouldn't have conveyed Sonic's more energetic nature that well. Because in the movie, Sonic seems to be like a very energetic character and a very emotional character, and the way that his original design was like, it just didn't convey all that emotion that the new design was able to convey. So I applaud the fans for stepping in when they did and try to tell Paramount, you know, you need to change Sonic's design because this design just doesn't fit with Sonic as a character. So that's one of the rare times where the fandom getting involved and asking the studios, hey, you need to do this or you need to do that, actually benefited the movie in the long run. And then the final positive thing is that the fans will be happy. Like, you don't want to deal with angry fans all the time because you got their favorite franchise or whatnot get so messed up in the movie and TV show process because you want to deviate so far from the source material. And when you actually try to stick with the source material, or you try to do what the fans wanted, then a lot of fans will be happy and they'll be very supportive of whatever movie projects or TV show projects that you put out in the near future, just because you listen to them for once. Now, here are some negative things about listening to the fans. For one thing, making changes to please the fans could cost a studio lots of money. Like, it's very expensive making movies and TV shows, and if fans want this big, expensive budget fight scene in a movie or a TV series, that could cost a studio a lot of money, and that might be money that they don't have within their budget to do so. And it could also cause the studio to go down under because they just didn't have the budget to make all of those big, expensive action scenes. And even if they did, it's still going to cut out a lot of the money that they needed to make other movies in the near future. And also with the case of the Sonic the Hedgehog redesign, even though I really do applaud Paramount for changing Sonic's design when they did, it did cause the animation studio that animated Sonic to go down under because, well, animating characters is very expensive, and trying to redesign the characters is going to be even more expensive. So that's something that I think fans really need to think about, is that, yeah, you might want all of these awesome action pieces in a movie, but remember that movies are very expensive to make, and it could cost the studio lots of money if they had to follow all of these fan demands. Another negative thing about listening to the fans is that it wouldn't be fair to the directors or the writers or the people working on the movies that they have to write a story that the fans want and not the stories that they wanted to tell. Like, I'm all for people having their own opinions about how to write a story, and I'm all for people having their own creative input into a franchise or to a movie. So when fans force the movie staff to change everything about the movie or TV series just because they didn't like the stories, despite the fact that this is a story that the movie crew is very passionate about, I don't think it's really fair to said movie crew, because now they're not able to have their stories being told, and it just seems like they're limiting their creative freedom whenever they have to listen to the fans regarding the story beats, when they obviously wanted to tell a different story regarding these characters or regarding this movie or TV show franchise. And then the last negative thing about listening to the fans is that all fans have very different ideas about how they want a movie or TV series to go. Like, you're not going to be able to satisfy everybody. And when you try so hard to please all the fans, you sometimes end up not being able to please anybody, because you ended up writing the movie or directing the movie in such a shoddy way because you have no idea how to handle all these fan demands all at once, that the movie ends up being terrible. So I would encourage studios to just do the best they can with these movies, instead of trying to please all the fans and end up messing up the movie because you're trying to put all these different ideas into one movie and it ends up being sloppy because of it. So overall, do I think that fans should have a say in how a movie or TV series should go? Well, it really depends on the situation. It really depends on what they're asking for and whether or not said studios can actually do what the fans want, or if they could still write good stories based on what the fans want and still be able to tell their own stories. So it really depends on how the studios approach these demands and what they're going to make out of it. So those are my opinions about this topic, and tell me in the comments down below. Do you think that fans should have a say in the direction a movie or TV series should go, or do you think this is a bad idea? Please let me know in the comments down below. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Rabbitearsblog, and I'll see you guys later. Okay, so I just got introduced to this new franchise, and I want to see what this franchise is all about. Oh, here's some new fans. Oh my god! It's a toxic fan! Help! Hey everyone, this is Rabbitearsblog, and welcome to another general discussion series. So today's general discussion is going to be on the problems with toxic fan bases. And before I get into this, here are a few words from the channel. So not too long ago, I actually did a video called Should Fans Have a Say in How Movies and TV Shows Should Go? And it's basically me talking about the pros and cons of having the fandom get involved in how a movie or TV series goes. And I actually really enjoyed working on that video. So if you guys want to check out that video, it's up there in the cards. But anyway, this is more like a follow-up video, and in this video I'll be talking more about the negative side of the fandoms getting involved in the movies and TV shows in the form of toxic fan bases. Now before we get into this, it's probably best to talk about what is a toxic fan base. So a toxic fan base is basically a group of fans who showcase negative behaviors like bullying or being rude or threatening people online or even in real life. So now that I talked about what a toxic fan base is, let's talk about what causes a toxic fan base. So the first thing that causes a toxic fan base is disagreements. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with having disagreements with other fans about how a franchise should go. Like, not everybody's going to have the same opinions about everything. And you can even get some really good conversations from fans who have different opinions from you. And you can have a different point of view about how the franchise should go based on your interactions with said fan. But then there are some cases where the fans start fighting each other because they can't agree on how the franchise should go, and that could cause problems for the entire fan base as a whole. Like, for example, say you were watching a romance film and it featured all of these couples in the film, and so you got a love triangle between these three people who are Sarah, Jason, and Kira. So one side of the fan base would be like, oh, Sarah should get with Jason, but then the other half of the fan base is like, no, Sarah should get with Kira. And then because you have this one half of the fan base that's all for Jason and Sarah, but then you got the other half of the fan base who's for Sarah and Kira, then you have a big fight on your hands, and you have two different groups of people who want this couple to end up with that couple. And of course, it leads to a lot of disagreements within the fandom, and that's where some of the toxic behavior can come from, where the fans disagree with each other and then they start insulting each other because they can't agree on what direction this franchise should go in. Another cause of toxic fan bases would be a mishandling of the franchise. Now, there are a couple franchises out there that get mishandled by the companies, and there are times where the fans themselves get very frustrated with how the companies are mishandling the franchises, and I honestly sympathize with the fans who feel frustrated whenever their favorite franchises are being mishandled, especially when said franchise was doing well in the past and suddenly they're being mishandled out of nowhere. But then you have some fans who start getting insulting towards the company, like they start calling the company names, or they start putting out death threats against this company because of how the company was mishandling the franchise, and that could cause a lot of problems for said franchise. Like, it might cause the company to kind of disregard the franchise or not really put their best efforts into this franchise because they're either scared of the fandom or they're just frustrated with the fandom as a whole and they just don't want to put in the effort to make it better. So there are some cases where some fans are being so ruthless or being so aggressive towards the company because they're mishandling the franchise that it could cause more problems than it could actually help. Another thing that could cause toxic fandoms is the popularity of the franchise. So say that you have this franchise that's internationally well known and there's a lot of fans around the world, and even though it's good that this franchise has a lot of fans, it could also invite in more toxic fans because once again, you're going to have a lot of disagreements upon the fans about how this franchise should go, especially when you have a lot of fans from different parts of the world also getting into the fandom and having their own points of view about the franchise. There's going to be a lot of infighting among the fans about how this franchise should go, and therefore because of the popularity of the franchise, the toxicity of the fan base can get more noticeable because of how big the fan base is. And then the last cause of toxic fan bases would be changes to the franchise. Now, sometimes there are some changes to the franchise that actually improves the franchise, but other times there could be some changes to the franchise that has a negative impact on the fandom or has a negative impact on the franchise itself, and it could cause a lot of fans to be really upset about this, and they start arguing with each other, or they start laying it out to the company for making these changes in the first place. And even if there were some good changes with the franchise, you still have some of the older fans who are like, you know, I don't like these new changes because I like the way things were before, versus the newer fans who came in when these changes were taken in effect, and they're like, oh, I like these new changes, and then they're like, you know, I don't like how the franchise was before, let's let these new changes stay. And because of these disagreements between the changes of the franchise, you get both the new fans and the old fans arguing with each other regarding the changes to the franchise. So now that we talked about what a toxic fan base is and what causes it, let's talk about the problems that a toxic fan base can cause. So the first problem that a toxic fan base can cause is that it could cause some fans to become self-entitled to the franchise, meaning that only their opinions matter and nobody else's opinion matter. Like, for example, say that you were a fan who suggested this change for a franchise and said change ended up helping out the franchise, but then you start getting into your head about, oh, well, since I made these changes to the franchise, only my opinions matter. It doesn't matter what the other fans say, and it doesn't matter what the big companies say. What matters is what I think, and that's all that matters. So you get some fans who are too self-entitled or think that they own the franchise, when in reality, the franchise is loved by everybody. So that can cause a lot of fans to act a bit nasty in regards to how they feel about the franchise, and to think that they have some ownership towards the franchise, despite the fact that the franchise can be enjoyed by absolutely anybody. Another problem with toxic fan bases is that they make the franchise look bad. So say that you're a newcomer to a franchise and you want to know what this franchise is all about, but then you ask a fan, what is this franchise all about and where can I get a start in it? And then said toxic fan says, oh, you're dumb for not knowing anything about the franchise. What are you even doing here in the first place? And whenever that happens, it prevents the new fans from coming into the franchise, and this could be problematic for the franchise in the future if it's one of those long-running franchises that said toxic fans being nasty towards the newcomers can prevent the franchise from getting a new audience, and therefore the franchise could stall because of that. And also, whenever you have toxic fan bases to this particular franchise, a lot of people outside the fan base are going to be thinking more about the toxic fan base rather than the franchise itself. So instead of talking about the story of the franchise and whether or not the content of the franchise is good or not, they're going to be talking more about the toxic fan base surrounding that franchise, and that's not a good look for the franchise itself, especially when they're not focusing on the story and the characters because they're too focused on the fan base itself. And then the last problem that a toxic fan base can cause is that it could be harmful to the creators and the companies involved. Like, at the end of the day, creators, writers, and even the companies themselves are people too. They have jobs like everybody else. They get stressed out like everybody else. And when they get stressed out, their work performance suffers because of it. And so when you have a lot of fans who are harassing the creators and the writers, or they're sending out death threats to the creators or the writers, or they're just being downright rude to the creators and writers, then that could cause a problem for the creators and the companies themselves, and it could cause the franchise to go downhill if the creators and the writers are stressing out about what the fandom is thinking about. Now, in some cases, some creators and writers are able to go through this because they're used to being stressed out and everything like that. But in some cases where the creators do get stressed out and it affects them, again, it could affect their work performance, and it could affect the way the franchise is going because the fans were harassing them for a lot of things that weren't entirely their fault. So now that we know more about toxic fan bases and the problems that come with it, what can be fixed about this? Well, for one thing, I think it's very important for fans to be more civil towards each other. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having different opinions from other fans, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with being critical of the franchise or having concerns about the future of a franchise. But fans can be more civil about the whole situation and just make videos like this where they can talk about their concerns about the franchise and what they want to see fixed with the franchise, and do it in a way that's very respectful and civil towards the company making these franchises. Because at the end of the day, most fans just want what's best for the franchise. It's just how they go about it that really makes the difference about whether or not a franchise can stay afloat, or whether or not the franchise will have a stigma against them because of the fan base. So that's my thoughts on this video, and tell me in the comments down below, what do you guys think about toxic fan bases? Do you think they cause a lot of problems for the franchise? And have you met a toxic fan, or do you avoid them altogether? Please let me know in the comments down below. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Rabbitearsblog, and I'll see you guys later. Hey everyone, this is Rabbitearsblog, and welcome to another general discussion series. So today's general discussion is going to be on the pros and cons of nostalgia. And before I get into my thoughts about this, here are a few words from the channel. So what happens when you grew up with a franchise during your childhood and you had fond memories of said franchise? Well, that's called nostalgia. Nostalgia is basically when you have fond memories for something in the past. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about the pros and cons that nostalgia can have on the entertainment industry. So let's start with the pros. So the first pro about nostalgia is that it could bring more attention to an older property. So say that you grew up with a TV series in the 1980s and you enjoy watching that show when you were a child. So now that you're an adult and you're using social media a lot, you wanted to talk about your favorite show from the 1980s. And so once you start talking about your favorite show from the 1980s and you talk about how much you really like that show, that other people on social media will discover how much you enjoyed that show, and they want to check out that older show too. And then bam, a lot of people know about this older show because you were talking about it, and it can lead to TV industries and the movie industry into trying to revive this older property just because a lot of of people are talking about this older property because of word of mouth. Another pro with nostalgia is that it could bridge different generations together. So say that you grew up with a franchise that's been around for 50 years. So not only have you grown up with this franchise that's been around for a long time, but so has people that were born after you were born, or so has the people that were born before you were born. And because all these different generations grew up with the same show, or at least grew up with the same franchise, then they can all get together and talk about how much they really love this franchise, and you be able to have a lot in common with a lot of fans who are also fans of the franchise that you grew up with. Now let's talk about some of the cons that dealt with nostalgia. So the first con that deals with nostalgia is that it could cause a resistance to new changes in the franchise. So say that you grew up with this franchise since your childhood, and Hollywood decided that they wanted to bring back this older franchise, but they want to reboot this franchise, or they want to make new additions to this franchise. Well, you might be one of those people who don't want any changes to happen to the franchise that you grew up with, and either that can lead to you not wanting to check out any of the newer takes on the franchise, or you could be one of those people who make up lies about said new take on the franchise despite the fact that you've never seen the new take before, and that could really hurt the franchise. Like, there's nothing wrong with not wanting to check out the new take on the franchise because the content of the new take is something that you don't like, but it's another thing when you lie about the newer take on the franchise without watching that new take first, and when you spread such lies across the board or across the fandom, and that could possibly ruin the franchise for anybody who was interested in checking out the franchise or were interested in checking out the new take on the franchise. Another issue that can happen with nostalgia is that it could cause a rift within the fandom. As I mentioned before, if you're dealing with a franchise that's been around for over 50 years or something like that, and you have many different generations growing up with this show, then yes, it could cause a lot of people to come together, but it could also cause a rift between the fandom because you have all of these different generations growing up with the same franchise. However, they all grew up with very different takes on the franchise. It could lead to lots of arguments about which take on the franchise was better, the original take or the newer take, and this could lead to a lot of fights within the fandom. So overall, nostalgia is a pretty interesting thing. On the one hand, it could bring back a lot of older properties to the entertainment industry, and it's great introducing an older franchise to a newer generation, but on the other hand, it could cause some problems such as causing a rift between the fandoms if the franchise had went through so many different takes, and each person who grew up with a different take on the franchise might come to blows with each other about which take on the franchise was the best. But despite all that, it's always important to love the things that you grew up with, and even if your favorite franchise goes through a lot of changes throughout the years, it's always nice to try to give a new take on the franchise a chance, even if it might not come out good or it might come out good. It really depends on how well the creators of the franchise are able to handle the new takes on the franchise, and whether or not they're able to write the new additions to the franchise in such a memorable and intriguing way. So those are my thoughts about nostalgia as a whole, and tell me in the comments down below, what do you think about nostalgia? What are some of your favorite TV shows, movies, or video games that you grew up with as a child that went through a lot of changes over the years? And do you think that some of these changes were good for the franchise, or do you think that they were bad for the franchise? Please let me know in the comments down below. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Rabbitearsblog, and I'll see you guys later. Hey everyone, this is Rabbitearsblog, and welcome to another general discussion series. So today's general discussion that we'll be talking about today is the downside of toxic positivity. And before we get into this, here are a few words from the channel. So you guys are probably wondering about what is toxic positivity exactly? Well, the official definition of toxic positivity states the belief that no matter how dire or difficult the situation is, people should maintain a positive mindset. So say that we twist that definition a bit and we apply it to fandoms, and we talk about how the fandom feels when they're receiving criticisms about their favorite franchises. So this is how toxic positivity can be a negative thing for fandoms in general. So let's say that there's a movie that does have really great visuals and character development, But the big drawback of the film is that it has a really bad plot. So say that you tell the fandom of this movie that, yeah, everything else in the movie looks great, but then you talk about, well, the plot could have been better. Like, they could have developed the situations a little better. They could have made the story actually more emotional and stuff like that. But then the fandom comes out and says, no, you're wrong. The movie doesn't need any changes. It's perfect the way it is. There's no flaws in this movie whatsoever. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with praising a film or a video game or a TV series if said TV series and movies and video games are really good. But what happens when there are flaws within a work that's so glaringly obvious to not just the fans, but to any other person as well? And when you state that there's no flaws in the work or whatsoever, despite the fact that it's so glaringly obvious to anybody who watches the movie, that could be potentially harmful for the movie or TV series itself. Like, the whole point of providing constructive criticism for a work is to help the creator gain a better understanding of what they need to do to improve on said flaws that was shown in that work, and have them improve on those flaws in the next installment. Like, for example, say that there was a video game that the game mechanics weren't functioning properly, and the fans decided to not tell the developers about the flawed game mechanics. Well, this could lead to the developers thinking that there's nothing wrong with the game, and they end up making the same mistakes again because the fans didn't speak up and tell them about the flawed game mechanics that they could improve on. Like, I can understand if there are some fans that are being negative for no reason, or if they're being a little too offensive when they're trying to talk about some of the flaws within the work, and I don't condone the behaviors of fandoms bullying the creators to do what they want when that shouldn't be the case at all. But if a fan wants the work to improve and they want to provide helpful suggestions to the creators, then yes, I don't think there's anything wrong with pointing out flaws within the work if it's going to help the creator understand those flaws and try to fix those flaws within the next work. So with toxic positivity, it could be detriment to the work at hand because it won't allow the creators to really improve on the work, because none of the fans want to admit that the work actually has some flaws and those flaws need to be fixed in the next installment. So that's my thoughts on toxic positivity. As I stated before, there is absolutely nothing wrong with praising a work if said work is really good. And of course, everybody's going to have very different opinions about whether or not a work is good or not. And of course, every fan is going to have a very different opinion about whether a work is good or not. However, if there are glaring mistakes within a work that can be easily fixed, then fans shouldn't be afraid to point out those flaws to the creators and give them helpful suggestions to help improve on the work. However, this doesn't mean that fans should insult the creators for making mistakes and whatnot, because that could discourage the creators from doing better. Like, be very understanding towards the creators and just be as helpful as you can towards the creators and let them know that yes, there are some mistakes, but there are ways that they could improve on it, and tell them about it in a very civil way and in a very nice way. Like, creators shouldn't be discouraged if they made a mistake or not. Just tell them that everything is fine and this is what you could do to help improve on this work in the near future. So those are my thoughts about toxic positivity, and tell me in the comments down below, what do you guys think about toxic positivity? Do you think that it could be a little damaging to the work at hand if the fans don't point out the flaws within a work that can be easily fixed in the next installment? Or do you think that fans shouldn't talk about the flaws within a work and on how to improve said work? Please let me know in the comments down below. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Rabbitearsblog, and I'll see you guys later. So that's my Fandom Saga compilation video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was really fun trying to analyze how a fandom reacts to a certain situation and making videos out of it. And I always wanted to put all these videos together to one video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Rabbitearsblog, and I'll see you guys later. Hey guys, like this video? If you want to check out more crazy content from this channel, then please hit that big old colorful subscribe button. And if you're feeling extra generous, then please support me through Patreon so I can make more awesome content for this channel.